Hello, everyone. John Woodson here to talk to you about structuring your speech. I've already talked a good bit about this, but let us continue talking about it because I don't think we can talk about it enough. All right. So you got your speech prep here. How do you structure it? It's like a hamburger. Your attention getter or hook, background, three main ideas, the thesis statement, all that. Main idea with two or three supporting statements, details, maybe some sub supporting points. Right? Same thing for main idea two and three. Then the conclusion, and you dress it up with some of the stories and things that you want to tell to get your point across. Use main points to make your claims. Major points express the key ideas and major themes of the speech. They represent the primary claims you're making in support of your thesis. And remember to always write your thesis statement first with the three main ideas in there, or ever how many ideas you have in there. And that'll guide the rest of your speech. Disorganized speeches fail to deliver. They're all over the place. I've had students that try to, especially online students, that try to pull one over on me and just start riffing and acting like they're giving a speech when it's all coming off their head. I had one student that was doing a really good job of delivery, and I gave him points for delivery, but I did not give him any other points because he didn't do anything else. He turned in a speech, but it was not organized, no outline, but he sounded good, good projection. And if you weren't paying attention, you might think that it was an actual speech, but it was all over the place. Our understanding of information relies heavily on organization. Even minor disorganization won't ruin an engaging topic, but it could really cause significant disarray, or rather, significant disarray causes us to lose interest. In other words, let me say this correctly, a minor problem is not a big deal, but if it's significant, yeah, it can mess everything up, like that student I was telling you about. So, well organized speeches are perceived as understandable, believable, and trustworthy. In other words, credible compared to poorly structured ones. You want to sound like you know what you're talking about. These back up your thesis and purpose, which we've already talked about. To create main points, begin by identifying the central ideas and themes of your speech as reflected in your thesis statement. Audience can only take in so much information at once. So limit your speech between 2 to 5 main points. I think more than three is usually too much. It depends on the topic because you want them to remember it. In this class, we're going to limit it to three unless you're otherwise informed. In the persuasive speech, you're going to come up with 2 main points. Your third main point is going to be counter arguments. Every main point should be mutually exclusive, completely different. Sometimes people really get close to the same thing. If a point contains multiple distinct ideas, it should be split into separate points. You might actually have 4 main ideas rather than three. Goldfish origins as wild carp would be the first main point. The second, their selective breeding during the Ying and Ming dynasties. The third, their rise to global popularity today. So, 3 distinct main points, and that should be pretty easy to keep separate. And one can lead into the other because goldfish are carp, and there's wild carp out there, and you can find the lineage to today's goldfish and how we get them to have these little things on their head. Too many points make the speech hard to follow and remember. Listeners recall points made at the beginning. That's called the primacy effect. And I've alluded to this several times so far. And they remember what's at the end, the recency effect. Primacy effect and recency effect. We remember the beginning and the end better than we tend to remember what's in the middle. More on those later when we talk about intros and conclusions. Supporting points represent the supporting material are evidence, such as examples, narratives, testimony, facts, stats, all the stuff you use to back up your points that you gathered to justify your main points. Organize with indentions. Those indentions are there to help you keep up with where you are. They're not there just because that's the way you do it. No, they're there to help you keep up and find your place in your speech. If everything is lined up to the left, then it's hard to figure out where you are. For example, this is from our template. Pay attention to coordination and subordination. A well-structured outline relies on the logical placement of ideas relative to one another. Coordinate points, ideas that are given equal weight and importance in the speech. Main points are coordinate with the other main points. Subordinate points, ideas that are given relatively less weight. These points substantiate or explain the coordinate points they sit beneath. So, not to confuse you, the main points are the coordinate points, and everything else is this is a subordinate point. A and B are subordinate points. 1 and 1 are subordinate points. Yes, confusing. But think of it that way. Main point is the coordinate. Sub supporting point, subordinate point is A and B. Then sub is 1 and 2. They each support the other. And there's some information there from page 163 in the book. Strive for a unified, coherent, and balanced organization. Unity. The speech is unified when all the points support the main message. Unrelated information should be removed. Coherence. The speech should, your speech is coherent when ideas are clear and flow logically. Each idea should connect well to the next. Balance. My third point here in my indentions. See my coordinate points and my subordinate points. A speech is balanced when each part has the right importance. The body should be the longest section, and each main point should get roughly equal time. Depends on the topic. And more information from the book on transitions. You want your transitions not to be cliched. These are connectives. These are words, phrases, or sentences that tie the speech ideas together and enable the speech to move smoothly from one point to the next. It also helps your audience keep up with where you are and drives them to the next point, and might even wake them up so that they pay attention to the next point. Here's some transition words to help you with this. It's a clear signal. The movement from the introduction of the body has begun, and from the body to the conclusion. When moving from one main point to another, full sentence transitions are especially effective. Helps listeners follow along as you shift from one primary argument to the next, from one point to the next. Like this: top management should sponsor sales contests to halt the decline in sales over the past 2 years. Transition. Next, let's look exactly what sales contests can do for us. And then we go into sales contests. So that's my last line of the first point, my transition, and then I go into the sales contests. Sales contests will lead to better sales presentations. Here's another one. A rhetorical question does not invite an actual response, but is used to make the audience think. So that could be a good transition. Something that you don't necessarily want them to answer. Have you ever thought of pumpkins being good helmets? Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm off my game today. Um, Here's one. Could there really be a way to use radiation without side effects and to treat more types of cancer with it? You don't know the answer to that. It's a rhetorical question. Here's some transition words. Next, first, similarly, finally. But this get kind of cliched. Use interval previews, the longer transition that briefly introduces the audience to the specific points that will be covered next in the body of the speech. This is good to keep people flowing with you. Here's an example. Victoria Woodhull is a pioneer in many respects. Not only is she the first woman to run her own brokerage firm, but she's also the first woman to run for presidency of the United States. Though few people know this, let's see how she accomplished these feats. There's your transition. There's your interval preview. A transition that draws together important ideas just discussed before the speaker proceeds to that next point. They're especially useful after a complex, lengthy point. So here we have an internal summary. I just told you about A and B. Now let's look at C. We've seen the mountain. This is from the book. We've seen that mountain bikes differ from road bikes in design of tires, the seat, the gears, the suspension systems, the handlebars. That's an internal summary. This is part of the transition. Now let's look at the different types of mountain bikes. As you will see, we're still in our transition, the internal preview. As you will see, mountain bikes vary accordingly to the type of riding they're designed for and so on. So this helps bring the points of your speech together. All right. That's it for structuring the speech. Like I said, we talked a lot about that, and you should already know a lot about that. So that's all I'm going to say about that for right now. Have a good day.